It's so funny that I actually wore my National Honor Society shirt. I mean, that was not on purpose, but anyway, let's get into the video. Hey guys, so today I just wanted to do like a more of an informational type video, like tips and tricks and everything. I have a 4.10 GPA, so I just feel like I can just help people that are trying to get better grades, how to multitask and be able to do well in sports as well as academically. So the first tip that I have starts off really at the beginning of the year. And basically, you should get a planner to write down everything that you need. Um, but once you get the syllabus for your class, you should go over it before you even start class, because usually professors and teachers give out syllabuses before they start anything in class. So like the first day, you can get your syllabus, you can highlight everything that you need, write questions that you might have about certain things on the syllabus, and just make sure that you know everything, because sometimes teachers and professors have stuff on the syllabus that they don't say in class. So you might like miss an assignment or not be ready for a test or something because they don't talk about it, but it's in their syllabus. So some professors are really strict about that and want you to look at the syllabus to make sure that you know everything. And so usually what I like to do is go through my syllabus and highlight things that I see that are important, like the teacher's office hours or their email, just so that I can know and like have it there and easily accessible. So then I will get a planner and then I will write down all the deadlines that I've highlighted from the syllabus. And I also have a whiteboard because I usually look at the planner, write down everything from the planner, and then go to my whiteboard for each month because I have everything written down for months in my planner. So I'll go to my whiteboard for that month and just write everything down on the whiteboard because I can easily see it. I'll see it in the beginning of the day because it's by my bed. I'll see it before I go to bed just to make sure I have everything done. So the next thing is to make sure that your professor knows you. Now, I know some of these things seem kind of cliche, but it's really true. Um, so whether it be sending them emails or asking questions in class, sitting in the front of the class, or introducing yourself like the first day of class, it's just great for your professor to know you because in my case, I've had certain times where they will like accept some late work. I don't really have late work, but like for extenuating circumstances, like if I had a track meet that I was at and I wasn't able to turn something in on time or something like that, they'll accept it because they know me, they know that I'm a hard worker, and they know that I'm engaged in their class because I'll ask questions or I'll email them and certain things like that. So it's actually really good to know your professor. Also, you should let your professors know that you are interested in your grades, because if they think that you're not interested, they might give you a certain grade because they might be tired, or they might just be grading stuff late at night, or just, grading stuff however and testing to see if anybody will ask about their grade. They might even make a mistake on one of your assignments that if you don't know your professor or you don't check, it might go unnoticed and you could have gotten a better grade. So, for example, for me, in my public speaking class, I got a 90 on one of my speeches, and that's not necessarily a bad grade. And even the professor said that when I was asking her, what I did wrong, because I thought I deserved a better grade. So I wanted to make sure that I was hitting the points that she thought I needed to hit. And so she went over the speech with me and everything. We went over, and it was like a 30-minute long conversation, really, because she just really went into depth, and it basically showed her that I was interested in making better grades and that I felt like I could do better. So I just wanted to make sure that I was hitting all the points that she wanted me to hit. So the next thing is to make sure that you do things ahead of time if you can. another thing that might sound cliche, but it's so true, because you never know, you might get caught up with something else. You never know what kind of work your next professor is going to give you. You never know, like you might just be free and not have any work one day, and then the next day you're stacked down with so much work. So it's just great to get a little done at a time if you can. Like for me, when I have papers that I need to write, I usually get started on it so that I at least have my ideas out and I know what I'm going to write about, and maybe just write like a paragraph or two just to make sure that I have something down, because it's better to have some down and just be able to go off of that than to have nothing and just have to start a whole paper like a day before it's due or 2 days before it's due, because you know you'll have your best work if you give yourself time to fully analyze and put everything down that you know that you need. Because sometimes I go back on my work that I've already written and I'm able to find better ways to state things, better ways to say things, and just have better ideas to put out. So it's just great to give yourself time to write and then be able to go back and fix whatever you need to fix. The next thing is to make a schedule for yourself. Me, I have a very hard time with this. I am a procrastinator, I'm not gonna lie. It's so bad, but I have a hard time making time to do work and then making time to relax, because like I watch YouTube and Netflix all the time. So I'm guilty of sometimes just going through my day and then coming back and just watching YouTube or Netflix, and then time will just go by and then I'm not going to want to do any work. So it's best to come back. You could take a little break or whatever and then just get some work done and then relax, so that it's like you feel productive and you know that you've done something right, instead of watching and then just being on a whole binge and then not getting your work done. So it's better to just start and get as much work done as possible and then like reward yourself later. And that kind of goes into another point that I want to make, is that you should take breaks when necessary. And at first I did not get that. I used to just work, study just to like get it all done so that I can have time to relax, but sometimes you won't have time for that. So for me, I've learned that it's better to study and work until like you're not really getting the material in anymore, and then take a 5 to 10 minute break depending on how long you've been studying, because those breaks actually feel longer than like 5 to 10 minutes, and it gives your brain time to like relax and soak in all the information that you've gathered to be able to move on to the next point or the next studying point. I've had plenty of days where I would study and just keep studying, and then like I realized that the information that I was studying was not actually even getting into my brain. Like I was just reading over it and like basically like just glazing over it and not even like making the connection in my head. So yes, it's definitely great to take breaks. And also, you have to be disciplined. I know it's hard, but if you know that you did not get your work done, or that you have something coming up that you really need to get done or study for, just know that you cannot go to that party or go hang out with your friends or anything, because to be successful academically, you have to be disciplined and you have to know that certain things are more important than other things. So for me, I've definitely been disciplined and have known that, I might want to do this, but I definitely have to get this work done. Or I might want to watch this or binge or watch a movie or anything like that, but I know that I have to get this work done, because it's really delayed gratification. You have to work hard now so that you can have time to do stuff that you want to do, or be able to buy your own house later in life, buy your own car and all that stuff. So you really need to think like, I only have to do this for 4 years. I'm only in college for 4 years, unless you're going to grad school. But just know that everything will come in time. You have to work hard to be able to enjoy things in life. So the next thing is, in terms of studying, you have to just rehearse, and just study. And basically, it's kind of like memorization for me. Because if you go over your notes over and over and over again, at some point it's just kind of molded into your brain, and you can actually like see where on the page that information that you're thinking of is, if that makes sense. Like For me, if I'm taking a test, I'll be like, okay, this was here on my notes, so I know that it had to have been that. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I've like rehearsed it and studied it so much. I'm not necessarily just reading just to memorize, because that's not going to really, that's not very beneficial. But just like knowing the knowledge, but then knowing it so well that you've memorized it, kind of thing, if that makes sense. So I definitely think it's good to just keep going over your notes until you know that you know the information. Like, for example, I will study definitions to terms, and then I'll study terms to definitions, because it's like usually the definitions are usually longer, so I'll read the definitions and be like, okay, well, that's this, like a certain word. Okay, so next is to read your textbooks when you can, or just read anything extra that you can when you can, because sometimes teachers teach something a certain way and you might not actually understand it or get it, or you might understand it, but you might think you understand it, but on the test it might be something completely different. So definitely read the textbook when you can, or just read any extra resources that you can, because it'll definitely put the information into your brain in a different way than your teacher, for example, was explaining it. And so it'll be easier to understand and retain the information, because you have so many different sources that you've gotten the information from, that it'll definitely stick in your head longer. Watching videos, for example, is good because it's different from, for example, reading a book or being in class listening to your instructor. So it's definitely good to get different resources so that you know that you're actually understanding the information. Okay, so next is to also use different resources that is provided to you by your school or your university. So my school offers so many different resources like writing labs, which I have used, and it really does help. It kind of takes yourself outside of the paper or article that you're writing, so that you see it from somebody else's perspective, because sometimes you know what you're trying to say, but it's not necessarily on the paper. So you might be reading from your brain instead of reading what's actually like on the paper. So it's also good to see if other people can understand your writing the way that you want them to understand it, or check for errors that you might have. Also, I went to the library and they helped me with citing. They showed me like Google Scholar. I didn't know about that, but if you need to write an article or paper that needs scholarly resources, or a journal article, it's definitely good to go to the library, and Google Scholar is definitely great because you know that it is academic resource. So you know that most of the information there is good, and that they will have the citations ready for you, which is also very easy because MLA citation is pretty hard. So yeah, the library can definitely help with that. And I also have Spanish help because I'm taking Spanish, so they help you with papers that you need to write. They look for errors. They can help you with listening and reading. So yeah, definitely use all the resources that you have, because it will definitely help you in the end. It might not be like, you might not want to go. You might be thinking, I'm good with my grades. I'm good with how things are going, but just try it, because you might have an increase with your grades, or you might just have errors that you don't know you have, and they'll help you fix it. Okay, so the next point is, if the teacher or professor gives study guides, definitely go over that, because it kind of helps rule out information that might not be on the test that you might not need. And it also helps you to have focus points for what you're studying. I think it's always good to study everything, because there might be bonus questions on the test or exam, or there might be just certain questions that they didn't put on the study guide that you might need to know. So I definitely think it's important to study everything, but also it is important to have certain focus points, because you don't want to study for something that's not going to be on the test. So definitely set aside enough time for you to study both, but if you're running low on time, just make sure that you look at the study guide and then focus on those points that are on the study guide, so you know that you'll be at least prepared to get the best grade that you can at that point. Okay, so next on a test, the best thing to do, which I know you've probably heard this before, but it is extremely helpful when you have no idea or you don't really know what the answer is. It's best to rule out things that you know are incorrect or that you know the definition to, so that you know, okay, well, I know this definition and this does not match this definition, so I know that this answer is incorrect. And then you just kind of guess from there. That has helped me so much when I've not known answers to questions, and I kind of can just make educated guesses, and it's usually right because I know some things that can't be right, and then I just guess from there. So it's also good to go over your test, because there might be the answer to the question in a different question that you can get the right answer if you just look at other questions and see that there's answers to there. For example, like there might be a question later on in the test that has one of the definitions to one of the answers in the other question, so you know it's not right, if you understand what I'm saying. So definitely go over your test and look for answers from other questions that might be the answer to the question that you don't understand. The next point is to listen in class as much as you can. So if you're taking notes in class, like I am guilty of this, I'll be writing notes and I'll be so focused on writing that I'm not actually listening to what the teacher is saying, because the teachers are basically explaining what's on the PowerPoint. So it's better to listen so that you can understand it rather than just looking at words and not really being able to understand it. Because if you're writing notes and everything and you get back home and you're trying to study, you're like, well, I wrote this down, but I don't really know what it means. So it's better to just listen and then take notes if you can, or just like kind of multitask as much as possible and just kind of like listen and write your notes, but then write cues that the teacher gave while instructing, so that you can know that you basically have the information that you need. So basically, don't miss the explanation for whatever the teacher is explaining because you're writing notes. Okay, so also in class, I like to write notes rather than type it or just not write notes at all, because I think it gets in my head better, the information. Like my brain's working in a different way because I'm focusing on writing each word correctly. So I'm kind of learning it at the same time. So I definitely think it's better to write notes, but to each their own, because some people are able to type faster and they'll be able to listen while typing. But for me, I'm just a writer, so I love to write, and I just think handwritten stuff is the best way to, like take things in, because you're writing it, so you're definitely using your brain to write it, so your brain is working as you're listening to make the connections. Also, I feel like it's better to handwrite stuff, because if you are, let's say, on your way to practice and you might need to study something real quick, so you can like take out your notes and just study it. But if you typed it, it might be harder. You might not have access to your computer. If you're driving somewhere, you might not have access to internet if it was on your phone. So I definitely think paper is just better, because you have it with you. You can have it with you at all times. It's thin. You can carry it anywhere, and there won't be an issue with your phone being dead, not having service, not having internet, or anything like that. Also, flashcards are really good. It's easy to flip through as well, instead of, seeing the notes and then kind of having the answers right beside. But if you have flashcards, you can see it and then flip it and see the answers. So definitely flashcards are great. So the last thing I have is always, always, always do extra credit when you can. But most of the time, you definitely can. You just have to set a time for it. But do extra credit. If you take anything from this video, it is do extra credit. I did extra credit for this semester. I did extra credit for one of my classes, and I had like, I think a 96 or something, some type of mid 90 grade, and my grade went up to 100. That definitely helped boost my GPA. My grade was actually over 100, but that's all you could have in the class was 100. Um, but yes, extra credit can always, always help you no matter what. It will never hurt you, so it's best to just do it. Um, Also, again, you never know. You might miss a quiz on accident, because you tried to submit it, but your internet was messing up. Anything, really anything could happen, but you always have that safe cushion if you have extra credit. So it is so important to do extra credit. And you might not have missed anything, but you just, it might be towards the end of the semester and you might not want to do this certain assignment, or you think it's better not to do it so that you can study for something else that's more important. But if you don't do extra credit, you have to do that assignment or that quiz or whatever it is. But if you did the extra credit, you might be like, okay, well, this extra credit will take the place of doing that assignment or quiz, so I can just kind of set that aside. So it is so important to do extra credit because it can always help you in the end. So that is all I have for this video. I hope everyone was able to take something from it, and I hope that I was able to help. Because I know that it's definitely hard to be a student athlete, be a student in general, but to add the athletic parts with the academic parts is pretty hard, because you know that you're putting a lot of your effort into two different things, and so it's hard to be successful in both and to juggle both, especially having to juggle both of those things and then have a social life. But it is definitely doable. It's just, it takes a lot of dedication, hard work, and basically having that delayed gratification, knowing that you might have to work hard and miss some fun things, but in the end, you'll be thankful for it because you will be able to enjoy yourself and enjoy life later on. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you liked about this video, what you didn't like, if any of these tips helped you, or comment down below if you have other tips that might help other people. So thanks for watching. Bye.